Hello there, very good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1 for the Newsfirst. Well, the people come first. I'm Martin Satyanesan.
And I'm Hiruni Karuna Rokna. Here are your headlines for tonight.
Shashindra Rajapaksa's counsel says client suffers from a condition causing breathing interruptions during sleep. Requests that bail be granted. Case to be taken up for consideration on the 19th of September. Athuraliya Ratanathero granted bail. Foreign travel ban imposed. Kehlia's son faces indictments over the unlawful earning of property worth 270 million rupees. Sri Lanka climbs 15 places in global democracy rankings. State bank employees protest in Colombo. Come at the Clean Drinking Water Project inaugurated at Mi Gamavatta Siddhartha Vidyalaya in Vattegama.
Case file.
On to those stories in detail. Colombo Chief Magistrate Asanga S. Bodaragama ordered the remand of former State Minister Shashindra Rajapaksa until September 19th. The order was issued in connection with allegations that Rajapaksa had committed offences under the Public Property Act.
Prison officials escorted former State Minister Shashindra Rajapaksa to the Colombo Chief Magistrates Court. During the hearing, investigating officers from the Bribery Commission stated that Rajapaksa had allegedly exerted undue influence on government officials to alter the official valuation of property belonging to the Sri Lanka Mahabali Authority in the Savanagala area. The property, including a building reportedly constructed without authorization, was damaged during the Aragalaya protests. Quote,
Your Honour, following the destruction of the unauthorized building and other assets on the property in Savanagala, which belong to the Sri Lanka Mahabali Authority, the Reparations Office issued an official valuation. The suspect rejected this valuation and persistently pressured valuation officers to revise it. He demanded compensation of 8.85 million rupees for the property, despite repeated refusals. He convened a special meeting in Parliament, where he instructed officials to amend the valuation report. Even then, the officers refused. His actions constitute offences under Section 8(1) of the Public Property Act and Bribery Act. We request that the suspect be further remanded as investigations are ongoing.
End quote. President's counsel Anuja Premaratna, appearing for the suspect, argued for bail on medical grounds. Quote,
Your Honour, my client did not seek compensation for the land belonging to the Mahabali Authority. He only sought compensation for the house he had constructed on that land. Investigating officers are requesting that my client be remanded under the Public Property Act. However, the individuals who set fire to the house have already been charged under the Penal Code in the Ambalipitiya Court. It was those suspects who caused damage to public property. My client's actions were solely aimed at obtaining compensation for the house that was damaged by those individuals. Furthermore, Your Honour, my client's health condition is currently poor. He suffers severely from sleep apnea, a condition that causes breathing interruptions during sleep. Medical reports confirm that he experiences up to 35 breathing interruptions per hour while sleeping. To manage this condition, he requires a sleep apnea machine. This machine adjusts its function based on the patient's breathing patterns, which can change during sleep. Therefore, not everyone can operate it. It requires someone who understands the patient's specific medical condition. My client has now been in remand custody for nearly a month without access to this machine. As a result, his blood pressure has increased, and he was admitted to the prison hospital last week for treatment. This situation poses a serious risk to his life. Given that he has already spent about a month in remand custody, I respectfully request that he be released on suitable bail.
End quote. Assistant Director of Legal Affairs Sulochana Hettiarachi, representing the Bribery Commission, opposed the bail request. Quote,
Your Honour, if the suspect truly had such a severe condition, he would not be alive today. He has survived a month without that machine. This is not a compelling enough reason to grant bail. We request that he remain in remand custody.
End quote. After hearing both sides, Chief Magistrate Asanga S. Bodaragama stated that no bail order would be issued at this time. He emphasized that the court would consider the presented facts and make a decision regarding bail on the 19th of September and ordered that the suspect be further remanded until that date.
Case file.
The Criminal Investigation Department today informed the Court of Appeal that no decision has been made at this time to arrest former Minister Udaya Gammampila. This was revealed during the hearing of a writ petition filed by Gammampila in which he requested a court order preventing his arrest. He claimed that the CID was preparing to take action against him under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights Act or the ICCPR Act. The petition was heard before a bench comprising Court of Appeal President Justice Rohanta Abesurya and Justice Priyantha Fernando. Gammampila stated that during a media briefing held on the 5th of August, he had expressed critical views regarding the arrest of a former Navy commander based on a statement made by a leader of the LTTE. He emphasized that his comments did not incite hatred or unrest against any ethnic or religious group. President's counsel Manohara De Silva, appearing on behalf of Gammampila, informed the court that his client, who is currently overseas, is scheduled to return to Sri Lanka soon. He raised concerns that Gammampila may be arrested at the airport upon arrival. Deputy Solicitor General Sudarshana De Silva, representing the CID, informed the court that no decision has been taken to arrest Gammampila at this stage. He added that investigations are still ongoing and any fines of 500,000 rupees each and a cash bill of 10,000 rupees. Although bail was granted, the court had imposed a travel ban preventing him from leaving the country. Venerable Ratanathero was remanded recently in connection with the investigation into the alleged abduction and intimidation of Venerable Vedanigama Vimalathissatero, the General Secretary of the Abhay Janabala Party, over the parliamentary seat on the national list won by the party at the 2020 general election. This was when he was produced before court on the existing warrant.
He who lives by the Dhamma is protected by the Dhamma. So I meditated, read many books, helped shape people's minds. Therefore, I do not want to speak separately about the conditions in prison. That can be discussed later. I also thank the media personnel who spoke about me and those who wrote their thoughts. We can talk further later on.
ඒක ඉතින් අර ධර්මයේ විසින් ධර්මය ආරක්ෂා කරලා තමයි ඉතින්.
Case file.
The Bribery Commission today filed indictments in the Colombo High Court against Ramita Ramukwella, son of former Minister Kehelia Ramukwella. He is charged with acquiring assets worth over 270 million rupees, secretary to Kehelia Ramukwella, failing to account for the manner in which he earned them. The indictments allege that during the period from 1st of January 2022 to 9th of September 2023, while acting as a private secretary, he unlawfully acquired assets worth approximately 270 million rupees, exceeding his lawful income, constituting an offence under the Anti-Corruption Act.
Vimal Veeravansa says that all other parties of the joint opposition will act together against the prevailing common threat. He expressed these views when a group including several former ministers who had long been divided among different political parties and held differing ideological positions visited the Mahanayaka Theros of the Malvathu and Askiri chapters seeking their blessings.
A group of opposition politicians, including National Freedom Front leader Vimal Veeravansa, visited both the Malvathu and Askiri temples yesterday. Among them were former Minister of Public Security Thiran Nallas, People's Alliance leader Anura Priyadarshana, Samavijana Balawege MP Sujeeva Senasinghe, and former MPs Janaka Wakumbura, Premnath Sidolawatha, Muhammad Muzammil, and Nimal Piyatissa, who for some time had been divided among various political parties and held different ideological views. The group first visited the Malvathu Vihara, where they met with the Mahanayaka Thera of the Malvathu chapter, Most Venerable Hibbatuave Sri Sumangala Thera. They also called on the Anunayaka of the Malvathu chapter, Venerable Dimbukumbure Sri Vimal Dhamma Thera, to present their concerns. Later, they visited the Askiri Vihara and met with the Mahanayaka Thera of the Askiri chapter, Most Venerable Varakagodu Sri Jnana Ratana Thera.
කරන කිසිම දෙයක් නැහැ.
Instead of addressing these issues, the government is pursuing political vendettas against security forces, former commanders, intelligence officers, opposition and politicians, and even members of the Mahasangha. We are taking steps to oppose this injustice.
විවිධ පියවර ගන්නවා.
ගරුතුමනි ගන්න දේශපාලන විපක්ෂයක් හැටියට සියලුම දෙනා එකතු වීමට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. අපි අමරාපනතුමා ඒවට සහභාගී වෙනවා දැකලා තියෙනවා. ඔබතුමාලාගේ සහභාගීත්වයක් දකින්න ලැබුණේ නැහැ.
දැන් මේ අපි ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්නෙත් මේ ඇස්පේන්නේ නැද්ද? මේ ඉන්නේ මේ තියෙන පොදු තරදණයට විරුද්ධව එක්සත්ව ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙනවා. ඒක තමයි මෙතනිනුත් නිරූපණය වෙන්නේ. 83 අවුරුද්දේ ඉඳලා අද වෙනකම්.
Since 1983, Sri Lanka has faced various challenges. The president of the time, Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, Mahinda Rajapaksa and Ranil Wickremesinghe all faced threats from the LTTE and took military and other measures to counter them. Therefore, the people of this country have respect and compassion for those efforts. What we see now, however, is not justice but revenge. In the past, governments existed, courts functioned, cases were heard and punishments were given. But never have we seen such a situation. For a democratic country like ours, moving forward under such conditions is very difficult.
නමුත් කවදාවත් මේව තත්ත්වයක් ආවේ නැහැනේ. ඒ මේ විදිහට ඉස්ස ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී රටක් ඉස්සරහට යන්න අමාරුයි.
මේක පැහැදිලිවම ඒකපාක්ෂික ක්‍රමවේදයක් කරා.
It is clear that a partisan process is being created. Retired officers aligned with the government are being brought into the police force, politicizing the entire service. Under such conditions, the police service becomes ineffective, and so does the public service. That is why we see these acts of revenge taking place, while the country's development has come to a complete standstill.
The Supreme Court of Sri Lanka has launched a comprehensive digitalization program.
Chief Justice P. Padman Surasena emphasized the importance of this initiative, stating that this is a crucial step towards delivering justice effectively, efficiently and impartially to the people of Sri Lanka.
We exercise judicial power of the people to the betterment of the people. So it is in that spirit that we thought we have an obligation, both legal and social. We have a duty to deliver justice effectively, efficiently and impartially to the people of this country. It is to achieve that result that we embarked on the digitalization program today. What you saw today is the result of their commitment, and it is they who quietly sit and wait on the other side and to the end of the world, the silent workers. So I am sure this nation will be indebted to you for your commitment. The bench rolls, diary sheets, daily case lists, motion books and manual payment vouchers slips will slowly fade away from the system. And this, as far as the bar is concerned, through this system, bar will communicate with the bench through this system, so that they will know the case management system, court diary, the announcement and so on, and the present status of the case on any particular given time, and so on and so forth, many more. This is a homegrown solution for the problems we have. This is not the first time anybody has attempted to digitalize the court system, but this is the first time anybody has done it. That is the Supreme Court's job to read this. Always what happened to the systems brought from outside was that it was not very much compatible with our problems, because only we who know our problems, not others. And we found solutions for our problems using our own experts. There is none from outside. I'm very proud to say there is none from outside. All our expertise. And we will continue to do that. And we will continue to achieve throughout the country.
The Chief Justice expressed these views during the digitalization of court system of Sri Lanka through the launching of a web portal and e-case management system.
Supreme Court Justice Yasanta Kodagoda has raised serious concerns over the prolonged duration of judicial proceedings in Sri Lanka's commercial courts, calling for a paradigm shift in legal education and dispute resolution practices. He made these remarks during an event in Colombo.
The time taken for the completion of a trial in the commercial high court, an average of 5 years. Time taken for the determination of the appeal, that is from the date of filing of the petition of appeal to the date of delivery of the corresponding judgment by the Supreme Court, 10, which means the complete cycle of judicial adjudication has consumed a staggering 16 years. I know that 5 plus 10 is 15, but due to rounding off of multiple months, it came to an average of 16 years. Why do legal practitioners repeatedly recommend and advise their clients to choose litigation over ADR processes? That is the question that begs a valid answer. I think the weakness, if I may use that term, starts with legal education itself. All of us who have come through the law faculty, the law college, our focus has been on litigation resulting in judicial adjudication. The subjects have been civil procedure, criminal procedure. So we come from that very narrow mindset that for disputes, the only effective mechanism is judicial adjudication. So we come from that very narrow mindset of being taught that judicial adjudication through litigation is the only effective means of dispute resolution and possibly the preferred choice. The other is that there is, I must say, Shanil, there is this view that arbitration is for a group of elite disputants serviced by an elite group of legal practitioners. You all are laughing because you agree. That is the ground reality. There is that perception also which takes commercial arbitration away from the mindset of regular practitioners who handle a bulk of litigation. We come from a highly litigious environment where the reference to arbitration gets challenged in court, and that means the matter gets diverted back to court, and also the arbitral awards enforcement gets challenged in court. So due to these multiple perceptions, as I said, both ill-founded as well as well-founded perceptions, there is indeed a heavy bias in favor of judicial adjudication. So as a possible solution, I think we need to start with this paradigm shift. Not to look at negotiation, mediation, conciliation, arbitration and contractual adjudication as being alternatives to judicial adjudication. Rather to keep all dispute resolution mechanisms in par with each other. I also suggest, ladies and gentlemen, that we encourage legal educational institutions as part of their primary legal education to teach a subject to be called disputes and dispute resolution mechanisms. And in this regard, I suggest that we make arbitration services available serviced in the two vernacular languages as well, so that exclusiveness associated with commercial arbitration diminishes and it becomes an homegrown, locally available, local dispute resolution mechanism.
Justice Yasanta Kodagoda was speaking at the ICC Sri Lanka Arbitration and Mediation Conference 2025 in Colombo, which also saw the participation of Rajiv Amarasuriya, the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka, and Tejas Chauhan, the Director for Arbitration and ADR in South Asia.
Chairman of the Committee on Public Finance, Dr. Harshidi Silva, today in Parliament expressed views regarding further strengthening the independence of the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption and the Auditor General's Department.
But according to the CBSL Act, Parliament has no connection to its expenditure or revenue. However, there are two other institutions where the budget is approved directly by Parliament. One is the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption, and the other is the Auditor General's Department. So the allegation, not necessarily against the government, but even a past or future government, is that through the Ministry of Finance, governments could try to control their independence by influencing the budget approval process. Therefore, Honourable Speaker, if full independence is to be ensured, it must be safeguarded. Since these are the only two institutions whose budgets are approved directly through Parliament, we propose that an amendment be made to the interpretation clause of the Public Finance Management Act so that these two institutions can be excluded. That will guarantee their independence. Regarding salaries, in November 2023, the chairman was given a salary equal to that of the President of the Court of Appeal. But after 2023, salaries of other positions were increased. While here it has not been adjusted, the Committee on Public Finance recommends that, just as the Court of Appeal's President's salary was revised in 2023, the same should be applied here from 2025 and 2026 onwards.
The National Audit Amendment Bill was passed in Parliament yesterday. What is this amendment and why is it so important for the country?
What is the history of the Audit Act?
Do you remember? On the 5th of July 2018, the Parliament passed the National Audit Act. One of the main reasons that pushed our country toward bankruptcy was the lack of financial discipline. Along with that, officials in ministries and other institutions that handle public funds either misused public money, turned a blind eye to its misuse, or even facilitated it. There were also occasions where auditors, the main officers responsible for investigating such misuse and exposing fraud, themselves became victims at the hands of financial wrongdoers.
Do you recall the acid attack on Lalit Ambanwala?
That was one such incident. In 2002, Auditor Lalit Ambanwala, who was serving as the chief accountant at the Central Province Education Department, was attacked with acid. He had exposed a 12 million rupee fraud linked to a computer purchase project for the department. He also revealed that from 1999 to 2001, officials responsible for the fraud had misappropriated 8.5 million rupees under the guise of teacher training programs. He further exposed the involvement of the former education director in Kandy and the chief accountant, among others. When attempts were made to silence him with a 10 million rupee bribe failed, the corrupt officials resorted to carrying out an acid attack against him in May 2002. As a result, he lost sight in one eye. Today, it is with the support of his investigations carried out after enduring such great pain and returning to service with one eye that former ministers Mahindananda Alutkamage and Nalin Fernando were convicted and imprisoned over allegations of misusing state funds to distribute carom boards. Even until his passing on the 14th of May 2021, Lalit Ambanwala's audits had played a role in uncovering major cases, the Ministry of Agriculture leasing a building at an inflated rent and the State Printing Corporation misappropriating 41 million rupees under the guise of repairing printing machinery. Now we recall these events to highlight the importance of the audit service in our country. From the start, it was clear that if corruption and fraud rooted in the country were to be eliminated, the auditing process had to be strengthened and the Auditor General had to be empowered to impose surcharges on the officials responsible. Both audit trade unions and civil organizations fought for this. The National Audit Act of 2018 was the result of that struggle. The 2018 bill proposed giving the Auditor General the authority to impose surcharges, meaning the power to recover misused funds from those responsible.
What is a surcharge?
It means reclaiming money that has been overpaid or making an official personally liable to repay the state for the losses caused by their actions. But was the act passed as expected? No. The government of the day passed the amendment in a diluted form, placing the final power to impose surcharges in the hands of the ministry or department heads themselves. In other words, the very heads who spent public money were also given the authority to investigate the misuse and decide on surcharges, which was quite ironic. So, what people hoped for did not materialize, and the country eventually went bankrupt partly because of such failures. Now, once again, Parliament yesterday passed the National Audit Amendment Bill, this time to strengthen the process. The new amendment makes the Surcharge Review Committee more empowered and independent. Under Section 12 of the 2018 Audit Act, the Auditor General's recommendations could be considered in court, but now, with the amendment, the Surcharge Review Committee also has the authority to examine them.
Back then, the Audit Act was passed after clipping the Auditor General's wings. Today, we are restoring those wings. The Auditor General is now empowered to direct his findings to an independent body, the Surcharge Review Committee, which is appointed by the Constitutional Council. For the first time, the Auditor General himself can recommend names to that council. Once appointed, this committee can then issue surcharge certificates to chief accounting officers, initiating formal recovery processes.
The new amendment also prevents MPs, provincial councillors or members of local authorities from serving on the independent committee, ensuring it remains free of political influence. At the end of the day, the people's demand is clear: to stop corruption and fraud in the country. The Auditor General and the auditing mechanism are among the main institutions that are capable of doing this. And while yesterday's amendments are based on drafts prepared during the previous government's term, if shortcomings remain, they must be addressed with further reforms. Strengthening the audit system will pave the way for a fearless and corruption-free public service and help free the country from the grip of corruption. The two-thirds majority given by the people must be used for that purpose. That is their expectation.
Sri Lanka has been positioned as one of Asia's bright spots in a new global democracy report.
Sri Lanka has made a remarkable leap in global democratic performance, climbing 15 places in the representation category of the Global State of Democracy 2025 report published by the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance. Sri Lanka is placed at number 58, behind Ecuador at 57 and above Bulgaria at 59. This significant improvement follows the peaceful presidential and parliamentary elections in 2024. The elections were widely praised for their credibility and calm execution, contributing to Sri Lanka's gains in predictable enforcement and personal integrity and security, two key indicators under the rule of law category. Sri Lanka was one of only two countries in Asia and the Pacific to record improvements in freedom of the press, a factor that saw global declines in 43 countries. The report notes that Sri Lanka's progress stands out amid a broader trend of democratic backsliding in the region. While Sri Lanka's overall performance remains in the mid-range, the report emphasizes that further democratic consolidation will depend on the new government's ability to deliver on promises of anti-corruption, institutional reform and stability. The Global State of Democracy report, which assessed 174 countries across 4 core categories: representation, rights, rule of law and participation, warns of a global climate of radical uncertainty, with more than half of the countries experiencing declines in at least one democratic factor.
Newsfirst, main sponsor.
A trusted place for your fixed deposits. Valuable FD, 10.25% for 15 months, 11% for 24 months. Valuable FD, the symbol of stability.
Reverend Father Benedict Joseph, former Director of Public Relations of the Catholic Church of Sri Lanka, who contributed to building a harmonious relationship between the media and religion, passed away this morning. He was 83 years old.
Reverend Father Benedict Joseph received his primary education at Dompe Tarale Holy Cross Mixed School and later enrolled at Borella St. Aloysius College for his advanced level studies. Subsequently, he entered the National Seminary in Ampitier, where he engaged in scholarly research, including European and Indian philosophy, and later graduated from the Urbaniana University in Rome with a degree in philosophy. While leading a life dedicated to the priesthood, he also devoted himself to numerous social activities. At one point, he served as the National Director of the Sri Lanka Catholic Cinema Council, which organized the country's renowned Signis Cinema Excellence Awards. He was a prolific author on subjects including Catholic communications and Catholic devotion, performing his long-standing duties in a manner that earned him widespread public appreciation. He served as the principal author of the Jnanartha Pradipa publication and as the director of the Colombo Catholic Press, continuing to contribute actively to society even in the later years of his life, despite poor health.
The Ceylon Bank Employees Union held a protest in Colombo today. They demanded urgent solutions to the issues faced by employees in the three major state banks.
The protest march, held with the participation of several bank employee unions, began around the Lake House roundabout and proceeded to the Ministry of Finance. The protesters highlighted several issues, including the imposition of limits on annual bonuses and gratuities in the three major state banks, the levying of high taxes on these payments, the failure to implement proposals related to retirement after the age of 96, and the lack of resolution on salary percentage limits agreed upon earlier. During the protest, 6 of the demonstrators were given an opportunity to meet with the Secretary of the Ministry of Finance to present their grievances. Outside, the protesters stated that they had accepted the message conveyed to them by the Secretary of the Ministry of Finance.
It has been a year since this government came into power, yet the finance minister has failed to hold any discussions regarding the country's most important state banking system. We are deeply disappointed that a finance minister has reached this situation despite the overwhelming public mandate. This government is trying to implement the cabinet papers prepared by the previous administration. As a result, questions about state ownership in the state banks have arisen. At this moment, we assert that bank employees will not allow the government to privatize or dilute state ownership in any of the banks, including the Lanka and the People's Bank. Moreover, the government is attempting to strip away the rights and benefits that bank employees have earned over decades, including annual bonuses and gratuities, which they have fought for with their sweat and tears. We will not allow this. We emphasize that this struggle will continue until every bank employee receives a proper pension, enabling them to live a dignified retired life.
The foundation stone for a new water distribution project was ceremoniously laid today at the Siddhartha Vidyalaya Vattegama in Kandy. This initiative by Gammadda marks another step toward uplifting rural education and ensuring basic infrastructure for the students and staff. The project is not just about water, it's about dignity, access, and the promise of a better learning environment.
In the heart of the Pathadumbara region in the Kandy district lies the Nigamavatta Siddhartha Vidyalaya, a humble school where around 280 students strive for education amidst daily challenges. For years, both students and teachers have endured the hardship of not having a proper water supply system. The lack of clean water has not only affected their health, but also their ability to learn and teach effectively. But hope arrived, not in grand speeches, but in action. Responding to a request from the school principal, Gammadda, a movement known for listening to the unheard, stepped in to initiate a water project that could change lives. The The event was graced by many dignitaries, including Venerable Keugama Bimalakithetero, Chief Incumbent of the Megamabatta Shri Siddhartharama Vihara, Indika Udavatta, Kandy District Secretary, Rinaz Muhammad, Newsfirst English News Director, Lakmini Sirivardhana, Pathadumbara Zonal Education Director, Thusitha Jayasekara, Chief Police Inspector of Vattegama, and many others from local government, education and development sectors.
We know that in the journey towards a country's development, a single party alone cannot drive progress. In such a case, all stakeholders in society, including the state government, businessmen, various organizations, villagers and government officials must come together to move the country forward. In particular, I believe that over the past few days, as we have seen on television, people have been visiting different parts of the country, identifying the difficulties in various villages and providing support to society through the Gammadda movement. Therefore, I think today is a special day for this school and for the children in this village. Even if we fast for many days, as humans and animals, we cannot survive without water. Drinking water is therefore very important. It is an essential element of life. It is difficult for us to live even a single day without water. So for the children of the school and for the villagers, the service being provided and the contribution made by the Gammadda movement is very significant. In particular, I am working as the district agent to support this effort.
ගම්මැද්ද කියන්නේ මිනිස්සුන්ට ජීවත් වෙන්න ක්‍රමයක් හැඩයක් හදලා දුන්න ව්‍යාපාරයක්.
Gammadda is an initiative that has shaped the way people live. When we started Gammadda, there was not even a peppercorn. All we had was the trust and determination of the people. Even today, the first projects we built in Yakkalamulla and Dambulla are still there. Buses are still running, and every place we built, they are still operational. Why is that? It is because we take responsibility for the people in these villages. We do not act in any random way. Now we are starting this water project in a way that provides for the children. It is not done according to our personal wishes. We are doing it to supply what is needed in the right amount. Then the mothers, fathers and children in these villages are responsible for taking care of it. They do not want to lose what belongs to them. So why are we giving this water project to the school now? It is not just for drinking water and then going home. It is for the growth and wisdom of the children who are learning. A child who drinks this water, gains energy and studies could become a district agent in a few years or a district secretary. This is the support we are providing. Therefore, Gammadda is not just about completing a project and leaving. It is a program that uplifts a village through each project. That is why Gammadda remains connected to the people.
ඒකයි ගම්මැද්ද මිනිස්සුන්ට බද්ධ වෙලා තියෙන්නේ.
If our children have basic facilities such as a classroom, food and water, only then will they develop the mindset to learn effectively. Understanding this, we as government officials are grateful to the Gammadda team for the important role you are playing at the rural level in advancing the progress of this country.
I
really appreciate your involvement and effort to supply a proper plumbing system to our school. Once again, on behalf of the school community, I would like to give you my sincere gratitude to you all for making a real difference in our school. A truly great social worker is hard to find, difficult to part with and impossible to forget. So, I wish you luck and success in your future endeavors.
Alongside the water project, a nutrition program for pregnant mothers in the area was also launched, showing that compassion flows in many forms.
Newsfirst with the people.
In the first 10 days of September 2025, 52,246 tourists visited Sri Lanka. The Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority noted that the largest number of visitors came from India, totaling 14,300. So far this year, a total of 1,518,769 tourists have arrived in Sri Lanka.
Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka's latest agriculture data bulletin for August 2025 reveals a dynamic landscape across the country's key agricultural sectors, with notable gains in paddy and coconut production contrasted by declines in fish, tea and rubber outputs. Paddy production for the 2025 Yalla season is forecasted at 2.2 million metric tons, marking an 11.7% increase compared to the previous season. Annual production is expected to reach 4.8 million metric tons, a 2.7% year-on-year growth, signaling a strong recovery in staple crop output. Total fish production in July 2025 dropped by 16.5%, driven by a 46.6% decline in inland fishing and a 4.9% dip in marine fishing. Despite this, marine fish production from January to July showed a modest 3.8% growth. Coconut production recorded a 25.7% year-on-year increase in July, reflecting a steady recovery. Coconut oil production rose by 3.6%, while desiccated coconut output fell by 20.1%. Domestic tea production fell by 7.9% in July, although year-to-date figures show a 3.4% increase. Rubber production saw a 13% decline.
The press conference for the 4th Asian Iridology Congress was held in Colombo yesterday.
A press conference for the 4th Asian Iridology Conference was held in Colombo yesterday, positioning Sri Lanka as a hub for global discussion on alternative medicine and wellness. Among the key speakers was Dr. Tarindo Fernando, an iridologist from Sri Lanka, who shared insights on the latest approaches and the growing role of iridology in holistic healthcare.
When we look at the eyes, we're looking at a range of things, possibilities, and we're gauging by the structure in the iris itself. So the eye is like every other part of your genetics in that you inherit certain aspects from your parents, grandparents and great-grandparents. Whether or not you activate a predisposition depends a lot on you. So it's about what you eat, drink, think, live and love. So if you live well, even though you have a sign that could potentially become a serious pathology, you don't need to develop a pathology. It's when you don't look after yourself that things can go wrong. So we can identify where something might go wrong, but if, like a responsible member of IPA, if they saw something and it was within a range of symptoms that the person presented with, would refer to a medical specialist for an accurate diagnosis. So our range is to assess, but not to diagnose. We are ophthalmologists and optometrist's best friend. We're the missing part of that triangle that is the strongest structure in nature. Iridology works very well with ophthalmology and optometry.
Experts from across the world, including the United States, Australia, Scotland, Malaysia and India also took part.
The Early Childhood Educators Summit took place in Colombo.
The Early Childhood Educators Summit, organized by the Early Childhood Educators Association, was held under the inspiring theme Reimagining Early Learning through Innovation, Impact and Intentionality. The ECE Summit is an annual event focused on shaping the future of early childhood education.
Why are we here? We're here because of how we want to have our kids use their skills, build curiosity, have creativity and confidence early on in their lives. If we start early, then kids can be off to a very good start in life. Reform isn't only about policies, it is about mindsets. So I think the biggest challenge for everybody here and the biggest challenge for Sri Lanka is changing the mindsets of the country about vocational training. It's not so much about policies and frameworks, it's about the reality of your classrooms. How can you create an environment where kids are happy just to develop and follow a life path that suits them? You are not just early educationalists, you are foundation builders. My career, particularly the time I spent in Sri Lanka, shows me how much vocational training can change lives. You have a role, I believe, in making that transformation possible earlier than anyone else.
The summit provided a valuable platform for early childhood teachers across Sri Lanka to expand their professional networks, share best practices and engage in meaningful discussions.
According to NDTV, the Nepal's President's office has announced that former Chief Justice Sushila Karki will be the interim Prime Minister of the country and will take oath today. In more international news, former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro was sentenced to 27 years and 3 months in prison as after being convicted of plotting a coup to remain in power after losing the 2022 election, dealing a powerful rebuke to one of the world's most prominent far-right populist leaders.
The former president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, has been sentenced to 27 years and 3 months in prison after being found guilty of plotting a military coup. A panel of 5 Supreme Court justices handed down the sentence just hours after they had convicted the former leader. They ruled he was guilty of leading a conspiracy aimed at keeping him in power after he lost the 2022 election to his left-wing rival, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. 4 of the justices found him guilty while 1 voted to acquit him. Bolsonaro's lawyers have called the sentence absurdly excessive and said that they would file the appropriate appeals. The Supreme Court panel also barred him from running for public office until 2033. Bolsonaro, who is put under house arrest after being deemed a flight risk, did not attend his final phase of the trial in person. But he has in the past said it was designed to prevent him from running in the 2026 presidential election, even though he had already been barred from public office on separate charges. He has also called it a witch hunt. His words have previously been echoed by US President Donald Trump, who imposed 50% tariffs on Brazilian goods. Reacting to the guilty verdict, Trump said he found it very surprising and compared it to his own experience, saying, quote-unquote, "That's very much like they tried to do with me, but they didn't get away with it at all." Bolsonaro, who is 70, now faces the prospect of spending the rest of his life in prison. His lawyers are expected to argue that he should be kept under house arrest instead of being sent to jail, as well as plead for a lower sentence.
And in sports news, the match between Pakistan and Oman in the Asia Cup T20 cricket tournament is being held today in Dubai. This marks the first match for Oman in the Asia Cup T20 cricket tournament, as well as the first time both teams will face each other in this edition of the competition. Oman qualified for the tournament thanks to the impressive performances they displayed in the 2024 Asia Cup cricket tournament. This is the first occasion the two teams meet in a 20-over match. The head coach of the Oman team is former Sri Lanka Test captain Dilip Mendes. As a preparatory event for the Asia Cup, Pakistan won a 3-team T20 series held against Afghanistan and the United Arab Emirates. The match began at 8 p.m. today. All matches of the Asia Cup T20 cricket tournament can be viewed on TV1 and online via www.sirasatv.lk.
That's a wrap of Prime Time News on TV1.
Thank you for joining us.
Good night.